Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada. In episode 6, we speak with Allie Gilbert on the subject of male hormones.
So let's talk. So Allie and I have known each other for a long time. And
intimately?
Like 10 years maybe?
Intimately, not intimately.
No,
just once. No,
just for a little bit.
Just for a little bit. But in all seriousness, Allie, you are an interesting person because you really dove into the golf thing. You're welcome. But I'm serious because Allie dove into this golf fitness thing early on. I mean, I was one of the first TPIs to go through all level 3s. I mean, you were kind of right there with me, and she really rode this golf fitness craze for a while, and then you almost pivoted a little bit, and you got off more into men's health and hormones and erections and boners and all that stuff. But it is amazing how it really did turn a lot of heads. And I've heard you speak probably at least a half a dozen times so far, and it's incredible how many things you pick up, and you're sitting there going, "Oh shit, I knew that. I forgot about that, or maybe I need to do that more." And it's just, what's your experience been so far? I mean, you just spoke at the PGA show. Do you think people were a little shocked? Do you think they were ready to hear what you had to say?
I hope they were shocked. I kind of go for the shock value because that's part of my gimmick per se. But because of the content of what I talk about is so taboo, and sex in America as it is not really often verbalized in the realms that it should be, especially when it comes to hormonal health. And hormonal health is so huge when you're dealing with athletes or general population or just regular people who want to be optimal. And we have all this wearable technology and everything now to remind us of how to be a human, but there's still that internal, I guess you would call it screening process that occurs that you can only get through blood testing, urine testing, and all that stuff. So the way I talk about it to fitness professionals is we have FMS, we have all these other systems to identify, what we want to do from a program design standpoint, but from the inside, what are we testing? How do we know something's not going on?
And it's funny. I mean, I've talked to a lot of. I mean, I definitely live on that border of like strength and conditioning and that physique world. I'm almost like the guy right in the middle who's like torn on both ends. But speaking to a lot of my bodybuilding buddies, I mean, when they start dieting for a show, they lose their sex drive and they lose that sex hormone. And they even know, they're like, "Man, how's it dieting right now?" It's tough, man. Like, well, how's it going at home? Not good, man. Like, and they literally they can speak about it very openly because they understand that there's a reason why this is going on. And when I feel my best is when my carb levels are sufficient, my fat levels are sufficient, and when I'm getting a proper amount of rest. And when you have, and you know what I'm talking about, when you have those weeks or months where everything is just firing.
Are we just talking about penises here, or are we talking about everything?
We're talking about everything.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, but if you want me to stay on
sure. I'm just firing everything.
No.
Okay.
We're going to talk about everything.
Okay.
But I think Allie just kind of where she dove into it was with the male hormones.
Well, with golf fitness, I get mostly men as it is in the area that I'm in Greenwich, Connecticut. So we have 9 country clubs alone. So men are more attracted to golf fitness versus women who want more fat loss and classes, and totally get that. And, as coaches, we can only do so much with people. We can control the nutrition variable from a certain amount, but there's that 1 hour they're with us in the gym. There's the other 23 hours, which is actually the title of my Perform Better talk this year, is what are we doing in the other 23 hours? So the other 23 hours are massive for that person as to what's going on with their results. So if we have a client that say wants fat loss or wants to perform a certain way, we have the nutrition down. We've got people for that. We've got the training down. We're able to control that. Still, results either plateau for longer than we expect, they're not as quick as we expect, or something else is just not right, then it's got to be a biochemistry thing. And the only way we can control that is getting more data. And that's when networking with physicians who understand hormones and naturopaths and all different types of medical practitioners can help us from an educational standpoint. All right, well, this is how it's going to affect performance. Because if you have somebody who cannot recover from what we're putting them through physically, who are eating things that are, not addressing the demands of the physical, their physical demands from their program, and maybe they're under eating, maybe they're overeating, we don't know for their physiology, then there's only one way to know. And so that's a huge piece that I think is going to now be the future of how we can program design, is knowing how people are from an endocrine standpoint. And especially the clientele that I deal with are very CEOs, high-end, similar to you guys, who are just stressed beyond belief, working all hours of the day, and they're having constant input of stressors. And so for the body to try to, achieve some sort of allostasis is almost incomprehensible when you've got all these stressors, hitting you. And it used to be the bears and lack of food when we were, cave people. Those were our stressors. And now our stressors are our phones and computer and, technology and all the endocrine disruptors and plastics and pesticides.
Yeah, it's funny how many times I end up hearing, well, I haven't worked out hard this week. Why am I feeling this way? And I'm like, the workout is it's almost just the frosting. I mean, that's just, 2-3 hours. I mean, if you break it down, someone's getting into a gym on a good week. I mean, what are they in there, 4 or 5 hours a week and considered a good week? So think about that. I mean, think about how many other variables are going to actually affect that. And society still doesn't understand that yet. I was watching a movie the other day called, have you seen a movie called Gattaca?
Yeah.
Older movie with Ethan Hawke, great movie with Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, and Jude Law. And this guy basically is born with this. He's born not to the specifications that the modern man is born to, and he deals with all these specific, potential injuries, ailments, etc. But it was so easy. I mean, they would just check his blood. They would come to him with a little card, and he'd put his finger on it, and it would just take a quick little prick. And out of nowhere, they would look down. It would have his name, and it would have his entire, call it what, like your genetic menu. I mean, everything that your genes are, which are amazing. Nowadays, it's still difficult. I mean, I went up and saw your buddy, Dr. Murphy, who I thought was incredible, by the way, total stud. But, I went up to Dr. Murphy and, he drew blood, or I go to the Ash Center and they draw blood and they have to send the blood to a lab, and insurance only covers so much, and it can get expensive. And then out of nowhere, when you get those results back and those reports, now you have to be someone who's going to actually take the information and utilize it. And a lot of times people, I don't think they want to hear what you're telling them. Well, you know what? We've got to just improve sleep. I mean, one day we'll get to that point where we're going to get that quick result, and I'm excited about that.
We will get there,
it's still, you got to admit it, it's pricey. It's still, once you get all that information,
there's barriers, and it's scary. You have somebody come to you for fat loss, and all of a sudden they're like, I have to go get blood work. Like what? So I don't start there, but I let them know that's part of the process. Like in an initial consult, if you're not asking the questions of how your sleep, how your lifestyle is, they're not going to be asked that by their physician. They're just going to be treated most of the time by what's on the paper if they have labs or if they've had labs. But you can draw a lot of data from, are you having regular bowel movements? Are you sleeping? Do you have a sex drive? Which
these are the main questions, right? Okay.
And I mean, I've had to get very comfortable addressing those with the men. It's not the first thing I do off the bat. Like, hey, you have morning erections every day. It's more, okay.
And that's a good sign, by the way, right? When you wake up in
morning wood is a good thing.
Morning wood. Yeah. You're okay. It's okay.
I'm okay. Yeah.
I actually had one of my 74-year-old clients ask me what that meant the other day. It was really funny.
Derek was asking me the other day, he's like, well, is it going to fall off? I said, no, it's not going to fall off. It's going to be okay. Just kidding.
That's just one of the initial indicators. But I hope that technology becomes, accessible like that quickly, so we can have on our phone, okay, this is what our blood panel and our urine panel.
What are the main markers? So I think I have a general idea, but I kind of want you to discuss it openly. What are the main markers that we should know about? What are the main things that you want to know about a person? I'm coming in you on day one.
Yeah.
What are like the 5 points? What are the 5 things that you want a result on?
So it depends, but
Yeah.
I mean, so what are your symptoms, right?
Right.
So if you're like a typical guy feeling lethargic, all right, nutrition, training, everything's kind of, on point. What is your lifestyle like? We address that. Let's just get some labs just to see.
Yeah, because I'm the oldest person in this room. I can say that. Okay, I'm 48.
You are.
I said it, yeah. 48 years old. And the one thing I noticed was, the desire to work out,
Yeah.
the energy, some a little fat gain that I didn't have before. And so it was a bit shocking. Plus, maybe just sort of, I'm not going to say chronic pain, but I'm sore, joints are sore, and even mood. Mood, like, that's what I'm experiencing. It's nothing tragic, but it's still noticeable.
And the fact that you actually talk about it is huge, because the reason why I like being an advocate for men's health is that's often talked about only with women with menopause. And that's why hormone replacement is so much more socially acceptable with women, because everyone's like, well, menopause, and let's throw all the hormones at them. Men go through something very similar, if not earlier in their life, because of the exposure to all the toxins and the xenoestrogens and the mycotoxins, which are mold estrogens. And I always use Don as an example in my talk, saying, remember when we used to make fun of Don for carrying around his, glass water bottle, which you have with you right here.
Yeah, of course.
And living that cleaner lifestyle that, it seemed earthy, crunchy, but now it's reality. And water filters are something we have to have in our houses. We have to do stainless steel or glass. So those are actual real things.
I always say that there's specific things that we just have to gain control over. There's things that we can change. You just said water filter, but even in the shower, remember a decade ago, Rob Yang told me, he's like, change your shower head. Like, make sure it's just one thing that you don't have to worry about. How many nights a year are you showering, or mornings? And when you add it up, you're like, wow, it's a lot. When I'm on the road, it is what it is. Like, there's not going to be a filter in there,
you
fine.
Can't control
but at
everything.
least I can control that for 300 days a year, however much I end up I'm at home. And that's my saying, is I understand, like, I'm not always drinking out of a glass jug every day, but 85% of my week, I've got a glass jug. I'm using a good purification system. I know when the filter's being changed. There's things I can control. There's deodorant I use that's good. When I travel, I don't have it, fine. There's toothpaste I use that's good. When I don't have access to it, fine. I'm not going to flip out and start like panicking and crying and not living. But I at least know that the majority of my year is under control, and leave the rest up to kind of chance. You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of that starts with the household products and the food too, because you see it in teenagers. Where boys are turning into girls and girls are turning into women at an earlier age because of the exposure to all this. And the fat storage pattern on boys is looking more female. Same with adult men who are very overweight.
Is that happening statistically now? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So we go through
it's
that
like
a little bit.
1 in 2 or 1 in 3 kids are overweight and diabetic, pre-diabetic.
What was that like when we were younger?
We played outside. We didn't have the constant input of technology. And the food quality was a little bit better. So, we can talk about nutrition all day. It's the number one most argued thing on the planet, I think, next to politics and religion. But the one thing we can all agree on, I think at least all nutrition coaches would agree, is that more people need more vegetables, which is where we get all our micronutrients. And if we don't have enough micronutrients, then that's what supports our hormonal health as well. But to get back to the question of what are the markers is, a man who may experience what you're experiencing, all right, let's look at testosterone levels, but total testosterone doesn't tell us the whole story. Let's look at the free testosterone, the bioavailable. Let's look at estrogen levels. Let's look at sex hormone binding globulin, which is a glycoprotein that binds testosterone, which basically once it's bound, it's very hard to unbind. But cholesterol levels are good to know because of that whole cholesterol is bad thing, but we actually need it to manufacture sex hormones, because everything in the cascade of hormones starts with cholesterol, streams all the way down to testosterone and estrogen production. Prolactin, progesterone are good numbers. Thyroid, because thyroid and testosterone are highly correlated. So the more data we can get, the better. it depends, you're not going to get this in your physical. In your physical, you're going to get like complete blood count, maybe a TSH. You're not going to get free thyroid numbers. You're not going to get a reverse T3 number. You might get one vitamin D marker, but not the free vitamin D. So, in a perfect world, give me all the data. But, some of the main stuff would be like, all right, definitely testosterone, estrogen free test, definitely cholesterol panel, which usually comes with it. And then a thyroid panel, like a full thyroid panel.
Are there, if they're not doing that within your, for your doctor, your GP, if they're not doing that, can you have your stuff sent out to somewhere else where they could do a very comprehensive?
So there's a company that I'm a partner in, Greenwich Diagnostic Sports Labs, and we have all our tests on our website that people can order. We can drop ship a kit, except the hardest state is New York because their laws are just unbelievable.
Right.
It's probably one of the hardest states to penetrate with certain labs. But otherwise, there's other companies online. I don't care where you get the data from, really. Obviously, I'll say our.
So you go to LabCorp or something, and you end up getting the bloods, and then you're able to take those results, send it to you and Dr. Murphy, and then you guys break it down and then let you know where you might be deficient in. And then obviously, you always try and make lifestyle and nutritional changes first. I'm just curious.
Huge.
I mean, that's a huge part of it. I'm just curious, but like hormone replacement therapy, specific things that I'm hearing, and I don't know how to answer these questions because one, I'm not a doctor, but two, I don't know what this stuff's going to do or how it's going to respond to someone long term. And I think I'm a smart enough person to know where if a guy is getting on testosterone at 25, 30 years old, he's got a long life now where he's going to have to be taking that. I unfortunately had to bury a friend, one of my best friends, my head trainer here 8 years ago, because his T levels were low and he got on it, but he wasn't doing it the right way. And, he was taking so much of it because when he'd get off it, he felt like complete crap. So I think that was the extreme end of it, where his body almost shut down and stopped producing test. And then he ended up passing away. But his testosterone levels, when we buried him, because we sent him in for an autopsy, and they were like north of 3,000, which is really high.
That is very high, and that's the therapeutic dose is quite low, and you kind of everyone asks me, well, what's the range? And in the blood markers, you would look at FSH and LH levels, which are the triggers to produce testosterone in the testicles. But the range, depending on the lab, is like 250 to 1,100. And what's happening quite often is, say a guy's like 36 years old, but his test levels are 290, that's a problem. But there are some physicians still saying, well, you're in range. But that's not optimal range. This is the American range. This includes sick people range. So that's not somewhere we want someone to be. We want someone to be between 5 and 900. And when they're going on therapy, you see guys in their 20s who are, producing low levels. Well, it's finding out why. So what's their lifestyle? What are their nutrition like? What, have they had a head injury? Have they been kicked in the testicles?
What's a woman supposed to be at? So you think the guy's supposed to be between 5 and 900? I'm sorry. Yeah. What's a woman's range supposed to be?
Women are between like 10 and 45,
Really?
Yeah.
So it's a lot
women who have like PCOS, like polycystic ovary syndrome, will produce more of it. There's actually a lot of elite athletes are women with PCOS, which have broader shoulders, narrower hips. They just have androgen excess production. So
they're just producing more of it, which is why they probably are carrying more muscle.
Like 70 would be like the top end of the range for a woman.
Wow.
So I hover around like 20. I wish mine were higher, but you'll see those women who end up in the Olympics and everything are more likely to have it because they can push harder in their workouts. They recover better. But the problem with, wanting to go on testosterone right away, if you feel like crap, somebody could have some adrenal dysfunction. They can just be overtrained. They can just be lethargic. Testosterone opposes cortisol. So if you're adding testosterone on that and you have low cortisol because your adrenals are just shot and they're not producing any, that can make them feel worse. So you want to really find out what is the driving factor here. So our FSH and LH actually turned on, telling the brain to produce it, and he's just not producing it. Is his estrogen level super high? What else is going on in his life? Did he just have a baby? Because men's test levels will drop for about a year after. So is it an evolutionary thing? So, finding out where he is in his life and then what are the stressors in his life as well are massive. Because if you're just looking at the piece of paper, oh, well, your estrogen is kind of on the high side. Here's a Arimidex. That's not going to fix the problem, because men need some estrogen just like women need some testosterone.
I mean, this is all considered hormone damage, right? I mean, once your testosterone levels start dropping or your cortisol levels start getting out of flux, I mean, technically your hormones are being damaged, correct?
Oh, I wouldn't say damaged, but like they're
a little wear and tear
like
on them.
wonky.
Just, okay. So my thing is because now in the last several years, I mean, everyone's in adrenal fatigue. I mean, suddenly, and this is going to be the next topic. I mean, everyone's like, oh my, you're hearing everyone say, well, my CNS, my central nervous system shot, and I'm like, no, you're not. You're just lazy, and it's funny because what is that? I mean, I know you're not going to be able to answer this because I kind of know. I know
you know that, huh?
Yeah, because there is no. Like what is too much? I mean, we all got to listen to our bodies. But when things start, when you start feeling that your energy level's dipping, you may have an elevated heart rate, you're walking up the steps and you're out of breath and you're like, wait, I'm exercising, these things are happening. Yeah, it's probably your body telling you something. How long do you think it takes for someone who is in adrenal fatigue or has gone through an incredibly stressful year, if they were to do everything right, how long do you think it takes? Is it like 6 months for things to start recovering?
Now I see why you say I won't be able to answer it. Exactly. Well, adrenal fatigue is a functional medicine term that has kind of been slowly retired because the adrenals don't fatigue. It's really your brain and the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus runs everything. So if the hypothalamus produces GnRH, which basically sends a signal down to produce the sex hormones, if that's getting bombarded with God knows what, whether it's a phone or stress or working out too much or whatever, then that will cause the pattern and the signaling to get disrupted, which is where the damage comes from. So the adrenals can get stressed because they do produce sex hormones as well as cortisol. And cortisol levels go like this now because at night we have the light in our face, so our body just doesn't even know what's going on anymore. So my friend Jade Tita, who's a naturopath in California, he came up with an acronym called SHMEC, which stands for sleep, hunger, mood, energy, and cravings. If you're constantly monitoring sleep, hunger, mood, energy, cravings, then you can kind of tell if your hormones are out of whack. So without even getting blood work. And all of a sudden you just feel like shit, you can't recover from a workout. I need scoop of pre-workout and a coffee to get up in the morning. I'm craving chocolate like no other. And you're a man or a woman, whatever, if it's PMS week, those are out of whack. So something is off. And he created a term called the metabolic toggles, which I talked about this at the show last week, because a lot of people will suffer, like you and I go hard when we train, and then all of a sudden like 3 weeks go by and we might just crash. Yeah. So he says when people want to drop weight, usually that's the biggest thing that they want to do, right? Drop body fat. They'll slash calories and then add exercise. So they're eating less, they're exercising more. And they're going from this functional state to now we have a caloric deficit created by both exercise and calories. Right. That's massive. Our metabolism is not so much a calculator of calories in, calories out. It's more of a stress barometer. So when we push on it by slashing calories and increasing exercise, it's going to push a lot harder against us with the hunger, the energy, and the craving factor. If we start, and this is why exercise is tertiary to trying to get your lifestyle in balance and fat loss, if we create a deficit just with calories alone, that will do a lot for people. But most people are under eating. So why would we add exercise and slash calories? Let's create maybe a 200 calorie deficit because that won't disrupt their metabolism too much. And that'll get them on the path to dropping a little bit of body fat. So that would be more of a eat less, exercise less approach. And that approach is also what somebody who is overtrained would take, where they put the brakes on and maybe spend from a day to 2 weeks in walking every day and eating less naturally because they're not as hungry. So what would that look like? Train maybe twice a week, straight sets, nothing super intense. An hour of walking every day, which will relieve stress, has no impact on hunger level because it's a cardio. It's a natural thing, right? Increases NEAT, which is the non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, which is the only way that we can raise our metabolism, and increases that factor, which is more steps in the day, and then kind of brings the body back in balance, and we're not pushing so hard on our metabolism. And then you can spend however long in eat more, exercise more approach, which is eat more calories to fuel the workouts, which athletes do. So you would never tell one of your athletes to diet while he's getting ready for a game or a match or whatever, right? That's like stupid. But that's what we do in general population land. All right, let's eat less and diet while we're trying to perform hard in the gym. So add calories back in, increase the exercise, and then maybe another 2 weeks toggle back. And you can use this if you're going on vacation, you don't want to train, or you're traveling for work, you know you won't have gym access, you'll be losing sleep. And so pushing on those toggles keeps the metabolism in balance versus deficit, 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 deficit. All of a sudden the body will adapt and you'll be running at lower fuel.
Right.
And it'll be like, I don't know if you're running from a bear or you're starving.
I think that's the one area, especially with people with weight loss.
Yeah.
They can't, I mean, because everyone always thinks they have to be in a deficit, but when someone's constantly that calorie deprived, can you discuss like some of the damages? I mean, a woman, a man trying to lose weight and they're basically starving themselves. I mean, what you just basically said was the body now starts adjusting and starts recognizing that, oh, well, yeah, you're only getting 800 calories a day in. So the way I always kind of refer to it is, well, that fire is going to burn a little bit less because it doesn't need to burn as much. That's typically what ends up happening.
Yeah, that is the metabolic adaptations. And if they're in a severe calorie deficit, that can take place in about 4 days. So, you know, women are more stress reactive to stuff like that. So things like refeeds and upping calories with carbs can help a lot to offset that, and especially with the leptin and ghrelin, because leptin and ghrelin, which are the hunger hormones, and cortisol and the stress hormones, those are what go out of whack mostly when, you know, you're wondering, all right, is my hunger, energy, and craving, you know, when the metabolism pushes back on us.
What do you think? So with refeeds now, because I feel good from refeeds, and just to explain to people what we're talking about, a refeed is not necessarily a cheat, but it's when you turn around and when you up your calories, you can be upping your carbohydrates or your fats to kind of get your body carbs, but to get your body more satiated, so you wake up the next day and you feel fuller, and now your energy levels, because I don't know if a lot of people have felt this, but when you are dieting for a period of time or when you're eating really well, you know, you feel great the first week, and then maybe a week or so in, you start getting hungry. It's almost like you're burning up all that reserve. So we throw these refeeds in, but a cheat has been, there's been some argument on it. I mean, you've got one end where they say, you know, yeah, well, this can cause some again, using the word hormone damage or some hormone fatigue, whatever you want. Metabolic issues. I mean, other people are saying, no, it's good in a way to throw a little bit of that crap into the system, into your body, for you to have to now how to adjust and adapt to maybe some gluten or some sugar or specific salts or breads that you're not used to having. Do you believe that it is good to get it into your body once in a while? Do you believe that can be beneficial if you are someone who's eating right? Do you think it's not necessary and just stick with the refeed?
Like a cheat type of thing? You know, I think for psychological purposes, I think so, because a lot of people, they don't want to have that deprived dieting mindset, because this is how they're going to eat the rest of their life. If they're super depleted, it doesn't matter what kind of carb goes in them. It's just get it in. I mean,
yesterday was Super Bowl. I mean, I don't know how. I eat very clean. You know, a lot of times, once in a while, I just got to go off the deep end. And I did it yesterday. And I got to be honest, I woke up this morning and I felt like complete shit. But I still know what happens a couple of days after, and I know my body rebounds into a better place. And psychologically, I've kind of already fed that craving a little bit, and my body just for some reason will end up feeling better. But man, I was fatigued. I felt like,
and you probably need more refeeds than you think you do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like, they'll need that, you know. And it depends too sometimes on if someone's insulin sensitivity is very poor, then dumping a ton of carbs is not going to help them.
Not gonna help
They'll
them.
just retain a lot of water and feel like crap. So it's adding a little bit, especially if they're, you know, lower carb, or women in menopause whose estrogen is low, you know, men who were crushing their estrogen with aromatase inhibitors or, you know, blockers, estrogen blockers. because it does help insulin sensitivity. So it's like, it's something that's where the it depends answer. It really does depend on the individual, where they are from a physiological standpoint and what they can handle. Have they been eating carbs regularly? And then this is just adding on top of the caloric intake, they'll probably handle it a lot better. Is it somebody who's been very low carb for a long time? Well, you give them 200 grams of carbs, they're going to blow up.
I'm wondering from in your world, because you work with so many runners, and at what point, I mean, I would assume that at the level that you work with people at, that they are worrying about their nutrition. But I still wonder, after a certain amount of time, if they're very type A and they're sitting there and they're getting their, their slow burning carbs and their proteins and their veggies, and they're eating really well. But if that fatigue starts setting in, because they almost need to up their carbs or calories. Do you ever find that, where you might throw one into their diet, or someone's focused so much on performance and you throw it in, and the next day they're just kind of crushing records, or they're running harder, their energy levels better? I mean, does that happen in your world?
It's so all over the map. Like, you have people who are very, very fastidious about everything they do. Like, I was talking to Art Horn at the Boston Celtics, right? And he says, oh, well, some of the guys have personal chefs and they do this for them and that. Well, other guys, grab a bag of Doritos, right? So, and there may not be a correlation to their performance, right? Some guys just, like Usain Bolt eats chicken nuggets, runs a world record. So I think...
What do you mean, like McDonald's chicken nuggets?
Yeah. So
not gluten-free.
No. So, when there's so much talent involved, I think where it starts to fall apart is as they age, right? You'll see these guys, they're like, they eat whatever, they're just burning it off. Maybe they have high testosterone levels, normally. And then they transition, and I know a lot of track athletes who, wow, that guy was, just so fit. And then you see him, he's like a huge guy now. And obviously it has to do with the fact that he's not training. But I think while he was training and burning off so much, so many calories, he didn't have good habits. And then he gets to this point, and now he's paying for it.
Or you look at Michael Phelps, when you start seeing, I watched a couple of his, what were they saying, 10 to 12,000 calories a day? I think a few weeks ago, I got one day in about 7,000 one day, or 6,000 or 7,000, and that to me was like, it was ridiculous.
A lot of people undereat.
A lot of people do undereat, but you look at someone like that, and he even said, he goes like, listen, I'm not sitting here eating steamed chicken.
Right.
I can't, for the amount of calories I have to consume.
You
can't eat clean. I mean, you're out there eating General Chow's chicken, and then you start asking yourself, well, wait a second. Is this just poor nutrition going into his body? Is that hurting him? I mean, obviously it didn't. How many gold medals did he end up winning? But, what's that fine line of,
the other question
too clean?
I had too is, what is the role of supplementation? Because I think a lot of the time people make up for it. Like, I can't get that, so I'm going to have this shake. I'm going to do it, which I agree with in most cases. But is there a point of no return where you're having so many supplements, you're not getting whole foods, and you're not getting the synergy of these foods? And maybe it's creating a deficiency, or it's an over-reliance, because I'm looking at pro sport now, and you have guys blowing tendons out every week. When when we were younger, a guy blows a tendon out, you're like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, but what happened?
Yeah, so now...
Is it because these guys, is it the nutrition? Is it because we're getting too big and too fast for our bodies? I mean, was the human body meant to be 6'5", running a 4.540? I mean, you see some of these professional football players. I mean, I've never seen guys this size. Dominican Sue was in our club the other day. I mean, these are big guys moving at rates I've never seen. I mean, back in, I grew up a baseball player. This guy's throwing the ball 105, 106 miles an hour right now. Mm-hmm. Ardolis Chapman is one of them. When I was growing up in the 80s, the hardest guy throwing in the league was Doc Good, and he was throwing 96, 97 miles an hour. I mean, that's an 8 mile an hour bump right there. That's a lot in pitching terms. Golfers now swinging you see these long drive guys. They're swinging the club. What was it? I think world record holders swinging in the 150s.
Yeah.
In the 150s for a golfer. I mean, that's insane. I just feel like people are going to get they're almost getting too big and too strong. And shit's happening. It really is.
They're over specializing too, right? Yeah. So what can we do on the nutrition and the hormonal monitoring side to make sure that they do stay in the safe zone? I don't know.
Dealing with WADA too, that's another.
What's that?
That's a WADA.
What's WADA?
The World Anti-Doping Agency.
So you're
Agency
using
or
these fancy
something.
terms right now. I don't know. You gotta,
If you have professional athletes, it's like the laundry list of things. They can't have like certain pre-workouts and stuff
that
like.
I know. Yeah, everything's NSF certified now.
Yeah, testosterone replacement is basically unheard of. Like, there's a guy that we had who had a variocele, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is like a vein on the testicles that can suppress testosterone production. He was like 24 years old, at a test level of like 200 something. But you can't go on TRT. Like the only way to fix that really is TRT. You can't go on it legally. So he was like, I'm not even going to shoot for the PGA Tour anymore because of that, which sucks. But, from a supplementation standpoint, I mean, DHEA isn't even allowed, which is the precursor to testosterone production. So, what can you do? You can basically make sure they're getting in enough of the nutrients that support it, which are zinc, vitamin D, magnesium, which are all highly depleted under stress, whether it's workout or whatever. And then also electrolyte balance is massive. A lot of people walk around dehydrated, especially if they overtrain and have any adrenal issues, because they'll salt waste. Like if they sweat at night or if their dog's constantly licking their skin, then they may replete with salt only, but not potassium. So potassium supplementation can be so beneficial, and that can help with bowel movements as well as magnesium. So it's having that balance as well. And that's why a lot of competitors will blow up after a show, because they have all these carbs and it's, they're depleting of all the salt, and then the electrolytes are all wacky. So it's so fragile, but it's like hormones are fragile. It's this delicate symphony that you just make them work properly together. Awesome. But it does require constant monitoring of like how you feeling, how'd you sleep, like all that. And a nutritional intake as well. So the type of supplementation and all that, and the future really rides in how people are expressing their genes, but that's a different topic.
So what percentage of the general public, then male and female, or is there even a statistic, has their hormones out of whack? You know what I'm saying? Like
probably 99.
I was saying, because I remember you guys looked at me and you were like, kind of keep doing what you're doing. I remember at that time
you're pretty good.
I was pretty good. That was a few years ago. But I'm curious to see mine now, because I haven't had you guys do mine in 3 years, I think, maybe more. And I know over the last several years with work and
hitting 45.
Yeah. I mean, things change. You have kids. I incorporated a 3-hour commute every day. Like, things change, and your body starts feeling different, which is actually, I find it a good thing, because it makes you as a coach learn to think differently and be a little more sympathetic towards your older population, and now you can kind of relate a little bit differently. But what do you think? From the people that might go, and I know you can't use names, but what percentage of people come in? You said 99%. Were you joking? Or
that come in, that I see that hormones are out of whack? Yeah.
Probably.
Something's out of whack, and it's pretty much lifestyle, and if you walk anywhere you get blood work, and if you have low testosterone and they just give you testosterone leaving, just don't run, because if everything's working at a certain way, and that's low level energy, everything, and your lifestyle is just not where you should be, and you add testosterone on top of that, this stuff still exists. You're just going to need more testosterone.
It's just more of a Band-Aid. It's more of a Band-Aid, right?
Yeah. Or just being scripted something based on what it says on the piece of paper. That doesn't tell the whole story. You can still be in a range, but even though you're low normal, or high end, it's all right, what else is going on?
Right. So there's a reason why those numbers dipped in the first place. Don't just throw more in there. You got to figure out how to fix it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't get even worse.
And weight training is probably one of the things that have added to your hormone profile looking so good.
Right.
It'll acutely increase test levels, growth hormone, and all that, but it doesn't stay elevated. However, it adds muscle mass, which improves insulin sensitivity, which over time will help you maintain muscle mass, which overall is just more healthy.
Right.
But the more you weight train, like every dose that you give yourself of weight training, even if it's cardio, higher intensity cardio, but mostly weight training, that's helping you get more sensitive to insulin. And then the more muscle you carry when you use that in training will help burn more calories. So the muscle that we carry and just sit here, we're not burning like an extra 600 calories a day. Like the media makes it seem it's maybe like 6 more per pound. But the more we use it, the more heat we're going to generate when we're training. And then that's where the benefits take place. And then it's increasing the signal from the brain, to the ovaries or the testicles to produce hormones, which is why it is thought to elevate testosterone more. So it will acutely, but it won't stay there, but you have to keep doing it.
Are there specific foods? Now, this is a huge one because I'd read a thing about, what's the best milk alternative? And they're looking at soy and almond and all that. Yeah. And the one thing about soy is like, it can affect you negatively, your testosterone negatively from what I hear. I don't know what the full impact is. But if you are somebody who doesn't want to eat meat or red meat, what are your alternatives to make sure you're balancing out?
So like vegans and vegetarians have to make sure they combine plant-based sources with the amino acids that can get a full amino acid profile. Garden of Life has a great plant-based protein. There's a lot of places that have the powders, but the powders, I actually heard Gabby doing a podcast on how like a 30 grams of protein plant-based is actually 15 by the time the body's able to absorb it. And that is completely different from the myth of your body can only absorb 30 grams at a dose, which was, I don't know, the 90s or something, like that was the thing.
Why was she saying that? She was saying that it was just because it was a weaker amino acid profile?
Right, I think so. Yeah. You'll have to ask her when you have her on.
I'm curious. We're going to have her on. I want to ask her if that's for all plant proteins or is P different because it's higher in amino acid profile? Just a stupid question, but
yeah. And then like soy is a big one because it's got phytoestrogens in it, and what that does is the type of soy with those phytoestrogens will mimic estrogen in the body, and that and flax actually, which I was reading a book called Estrogeneration, which I forget the author, but it's a really good book and very surprising. Things like red number 40 are highly estrogenic, which are in a lot of dyes for different foods and stuff. But flax oil has lignans in it, which are very estrogenic as well. But if it's flax seed and produced a certain way, it's not as bad. Fermented soy also not as bad with the way it's assimilated in the gut, but you have to have good gut bacteria for that to be okay. In Japan, the soy sauce they use is fermented. In America, it's not. So people think I'm crazy because I bring around coconut aminos when I go out for sushi. But, I also have a gene that makes me predisposed to breast cancer. So I'm going to avoid as much estrogenic exposure as I can. And men can get breast cancer too. So it's not just women. But stuff like that and like the plastics and, all of those things, it's crazy the amount of estrogens and the pesticides and stuff. Like you read this book, you're going to be like, I don't want to breathe. And it's not so much scare tactics anymore. I was like, all right, well, this is reality. Coffee is one of the most heavily sprayed crops. Organic coffee is huge. The massive amount of women on birth control now, not only just taking exogenous estrogen being a bad thing, but when they use the bathroom, that the estrogens in the urine, that doesn't get treated through the water filtration system. So you're getting hormones straight through into the water system. And that's like,
that's why I'm off the raw water.
So like vegan gluten-free water would be perfect, but no, but it's true though. Like, and like water bottles, plastic water bottles, like, all right, if you're traveling and all that stuff, sometimes you can't avoid it. But if I made a post the other day, if it's in your car for longer than like a few hours in a hot environment, get rid of it because that plastic's already melted into it.
So what are some of so not to confuse the listeners here, but what are some of the main points before you're even going to send someone off for blood work? So someone's listening to this podcast right now and they're like, all right, what are some of the markers that I should be looking at, or some of the things I should really make sure that I'm correcting? Use some very basic like pointers, little cheat sheet notes for people to take on.
If you haven't had test levels checked as a guy and you're over the age of 25, it would be good to start just to get baselines so that as you age, you can track it. And if you have any life events, whether, a death or a baby or anything to create some sort of trauma, then you can at least see where it goes down and then learn what to do about it. So then you have the data of, well, everything else was in check. This is all that just dipped. So just getting the data just to have, and the best thing to tell your doctor, if he questions why you want those things, get a new doctor. But if he questions it, which he shouldn't, then you just want to know if you're functioning optimally as a man. I mean, you have every right to learn that stuff. And then for women, it would be the, estrogen, progesterone, full thyroid panel, FSH, LH, just depending on what you are trying to achieve. It's good to have that data. And just know that wherever you fall in the range may not mean anything.
And then what are some of the things we should be cleaning up at home, or like you just mentioned, like try not to drink out of plastics? I'm sure people will listen to this and they'll start trying to drink out of glass a little bit more. But are there any other specific things with light in the evenings or anything that's going to kind of help your overall
blue light filters? It's hard to be like, yeah, shut electronics off an hour before. I'm very guilty of just like lying in bed scrolling. But I found, all right, half hour, if I just put the phone face down and then lie in bed in the dark, like I'll actually fall asleep. Because we're so hyped up, we think, oh, we can't go to bed now. But if you actually lie in a dark room, and I have a noise machine that totally calms me down, and then it'll allow you to like calm yourself down, because that'll make your cortisol pattern, come back to balance if it's off. So stuff like that, drinking organic coffee, getting a water filter system. Berkey water filters are great.
Do you believe in people taking breaks from caffeine, or do you think it's not even really necessary?
Yes. I mean, if they're reliant upon it, like if you're dependent, which I think we've all been there, You take a break, you feel like shit for a little bit, and then, you know what, okay, I feel okay.
Right.
And then as soon as you have it again, you're like, I feel amazing, It depends where you are physiologically. Like if you are just so shot adrenally that your body's just like, there's no chance in producing any type of cortisol whatsoever. Caffeine, all the caffeine in the world probably won't do much.
Right.
But the human body can handle a lot. That being said, yeah.
Right.
There is a reason why the caffeine, ephedrine, aspirin stack works so well. And still does.
Remember the ephedrine?
If you can find real ephedrine.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I haven't seen real ephedrine on the
In
shelf.
years, yeah. Yeah, they have the pseudoephedrine that you can get from asthma medication.
What else are we missing? Anything?
Boners. You had an erection question, right?
Yes, I have had no problems whatsoever.
Oh boy.
But I do feel sorry for the people who do. And if somebody does ask you, like, "Hey, I've had these issues," I mean, you talk first about lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Are there any other factors, like are hereditary factors playing into it? Like you said, trauma.
That's a great question. Hereditary, I don't know the answer to, but it is a mindset thing as well. Yeah. It can be, and libido and erectile dysfunction can, be separated, because some people, like with the supplementation, there's no supplement that can boost testosterone, but there are supplements that can increase libido, but they're not to be confused with testosterone levels increasing as well. So you may feel like, oh yeah, I can get it going, but then you actually can't physically, mechanically. And a lot, like brain injuries and stuff like that. Like I just started speaking at TSAC or military groups, learning how explosives and post-traumatic stress and all the TBIs cause the wiring in the hypothalamus to, go to disaster. So the HPA axis is like all screwed up. So that can greatly affect it. If you start to experience less strong erections over a course of time, then it might be time to get tested to see what's going on. If all other areas in your life you've experienced, like, okay, I'm doing okay, I'm not super stressed, like my relationship's good, and it's not so much a mindset thing, because it's not always physical too.
What's the effect of alcohol on something like a hormonal profile? If somebody's, likes to drink alcohol,
liver enzymes will go up if they drink like the night before. You might see that. It does cause a spike in cortisol in the middle of the night, so that will obviously disrupt sleep patterns, so then it can tank growth hormone and stuff. I had an online client, I always tell this story. he was training maybe 4 days a week, sleeping 4 hours a night because he had a couple glasses of wine every night, and he was traveling a lot, all belly fat. Like, he just was not able to drop fat. And I said, I know you're paying me, but I don't want you to train right now. I just want you to walk and sleep. And let's try to cut back on the drinks. He was actually able to, within 3 weeks, he had lost an inch on his waist just sleeping. And we had gone from 3-4 hours to 6 hours, which was
That's
a
great.
huge
That's
jump.
huge, yeah.
You know, and then I was like, all right, slowly let's add in training. So we're up to training twice a week. And then we got back up to 4 days a week, but his body was able to handle it. So again, that whole deficit thing where his functional state was able to support what the physiological demands were of his outside life. So it's so individualized, but you know, as fitness pros, if we can ask the right questions, how is stress? How is work? Have you traveled? You know, how are you sleeping? Then we can know, all right, maybe we won't max out today because you're just shot. Maybe we'll, you know, do like a 20-minute intense circuit.
How about something like marijuana or edibles? Or now we know they're becoming legal in many states.
Yeah.
And people are starting to kind of resort to that over alcohol for many reasons. You know, you're definitely not feeling it the next day. But that should, or does it not do something to your hormone
It can
panel?
deplete testosterone. It can cause, we've actually seen labs with people who get osteopenia and osteoporosis, so it can cause bone density issues. Infrequent usage. The oil, not because there's no THC in the oil. Somebody actually handed me a bunch of CBD oil samples at the PGA show, saying they're introducing it to the Champions Tour, which I found interesting. There's a lot of benefits
to that. I've seen the CBD creams, and I've seen there's a company called Lord Jones that makes a really good one, and you know, I'm still unsure on, you know, if it's, you know, I've actually tried the CBD creams. Didn't feel any, you know, thing completely different.
Yeah,
but
me neither. I tried it. I was like, all right, this is great.
But now it seems like that you can really do a CBD and THC mixture, and I was just more curious in how much, when you say infrequent use, is it something where someone was using it once every couple of weeks, they're not going to probably see a problem from that? Or
People that we had tested, one guy is every day, and then another guy was 4 to 5 days. So the scientific mechanism as to how it causes all this and increases prolactin, I don't know. But,
interesting. And I'm sure we'll find that out more in the next several years because
well, Canada's making it legal like tomorrow.
So Vancouver's going to have it now?
Oh, it's all over the place. Like, there's so much gray area operations that you can, if you want it, you can get it right in a lot of the...
Hopefully they regulate it, and hopefully they're, you know, if you're going to get it, they're keeping their eye on it, and they know, you know, they know everything behind it. It's probably a lot of the problem is we don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it. I just know from what, you know, we've experienced through clients coming in.
All right, so if someone wants to find you, if someone wants to kind of check your stuff out, where are they going to look
My
for it
Instagram
out?
is @MetabolicGolf. My Twitter is @MetabolicGolf. My name, Allie Gilbert, on Facebook. I'm also Metabolic Golf on Facebook. I think that's it.
You still doing a lot of golf stuff? Are you still in that world a lot? Or not
I am. I made the Golf Digest list like you.
I did make that. Top 50, right? Or was it top 50?
Top 50. See, I find, you know, a lot of my guys will come to me for golf fitness, but that's more of their way of getting in the door to the aesthetic and lifestyle stuff. Because they all say they want golf fitness, but then I learned quickly, they're like, you know, I feel like crap.
But that is golf fitness.
And it is.
That is, and that's the funny.
They don't have to know that. They will now because it's on a podcast.
It's working on golfers fixing their testosterone levels or their.
Oh yeah.
That's golf fitness.
I mean, now I had one guy who was like, please don't take this the wrong way, but I thought of you because I had morning wood. And I was like, that's awesome. Because that's health.
It is, but you know, I'm laughing at it less and less now because I understand that this isn't a conversation like having when you're in high school. Like, this is important stuff.
Totally. And it's taken a while. You know how Janet Alexander gets the men to talk to women about their menstrual cycle. Well, it's the same thing for me, talking to them about, you know, their erection. They don't expect that when they walk in for golf fitness. Like, this girl's talking to me about my boner. What?
Right.
You know, but I think I deliver the information to them in a way that is very raw and unfiltered, that they expect, okay, this is okay. You're telling me the truth, because if a woman is talking about this, it's okay to talk about, because so many men don't talk about it.
Have any guys walked out of the seminar room on you yet? Like, have you
Not
just
yet.
seen, not yet? No one's turned around and said, "Oh, I can't handle this. This is too embarrassing."
No one has said anything in that form that at least I've known about. No one has brought to my attention that I've gone too far or anything. I have had people say, I appreciate your candor, I appreciate your bluntness, and I guess that's how I am naturally. So I appreciate that, because I tend to be like straightforward.
I also think that you're trying to get people comfortable, and you are a woman talking about, you know, a lot of more men's issuing.
Correct. So
I
have to
think
take
you got to
an
break
authority.
that. You got to break the ice. I mean, if that was me doing that in a group of women, I'd be thrown out quickly. I got to be more careful than you.
You know, that now, like the guys who are, you know, my clients for a while, they get used to it, because they'll be like, yeah, this guy was really estrogenic looking, and I bet he has no morning wood, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
that's
but
true.
they're getting it.
Yeah,
But they're getting it.
But they get it, and they get, you know, that this is health, and, you know, there's andropause is the term for like a male menopause, but, you know, men are falling into that category earlier because of the way our lifestyle and environment is set up. So the more awareness that we can create, and, you know, we can talk about hormone replacement as a separate topic, because that's also still a very taboo subject for men, because they, you know, approach it as steroids and cheating, but it's really not. It's the same as women's hormone replacement or thyroid replacement. If you take thyroid, you're replacing thyroid. So, but I think the more awareness we can create of, you know, their own signs and symptoms of maybe their body is not really recovering, or, you know, working at the rate that they were in their 20s, then, you know, get them comfortable talking about it. Because there are a lot of men that direct message me saying, like, thank you for talking about this, you know, and it's like, it makes me happy, but it makes me sad, because it's like, this should be an open forum, but, you know.
We spoke about this on one of our last topics with wearables. Men especially, I'm finding, is they still live in the past when it comes down to their training, and they remember what they did in high school, and they remember what they did in college, and we're not even saying that was right. They could. I know when I was off, I played collegiate baseball. I played D1. My college coach was won an NFL Super Bowl, and he was this guy Nick Giacquino, lead blocker for John Riggins, and he would just beat the living shit out of us when it came down to conditioning. Granted, listen, this is what he knew, and things got a lot different and a lot more smart. But if I didn't know any better and I wasn't doing this for a living, I'd be thinking about what coach had me doing in high school, saying, oh man, I should be running 5 miles after we go weight train right before practice. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, when the reality is we need a lot less. So I know that's a big problem, is that we still live in the past, when the past wasn't exactly what was right. And the people trying to get back into that mindset, their bodies and their minds can't handle that type of intensity.
Yeah.
And then that gives them a lot of problems when it comes down to what we're talking about right now with our hormones. And from the mental standpoint, I know it just becomes a nightmare. So no point to what I just said there. I mean, I was just more
No, but
reiterating.
it gives validation to the fact that, like, you know, if you're not new to weight training, the older we get, we don't need as much stimulation. You know, find an outlet another way. And I had to have this hard conversation with one of my CEOs, because he was training 7 days a week. And he trains with me locally, like once every couple months, but online mainly. And he was just not getting the results. And I'm like, listen, nothing you're doing is working right now. So we have you. He couldn't even get up to the calories I wanted him to, because he was so depleted, training so hard. He was just like too tired to eat, so busy with travel and work. I'm like, why don't we get you to the calories that we want you at, which is still a mild deficit, but at least it's higher than you were, and then train twice a week. And he was just like crushed, but he's like, what else? What other choice does he have?
Right.
You know, what you're doing is not working. Adding more exercise, taking away calories, which we were saying before, that will work till it doesn't.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, people like the extremes. They like black and white, like you
They
said.
do.
Like, oh, I'm going to just train hard till I fall over, or I'm going to, you know, intermittent fast till I lose my weight. And then, but what's that setting up, right? Or I'm going to go straight to hormone replacement because
Because fuck it. Like, yeah. And they want a camp to live in. Like, what diet camp do I live in now? And men need structure, and I get that, and they want the structure. So it's, all right, you're going to train this day and this day, you're going to walk this day and this day, you're going to report to me every single day, and then meal plans, like I can give people meal plans, but I like to teach them how to do it on their own, and then send them off. Because if you say eat less, exercise less, they have no idea what to do. Nobody really has any idea what to do. But I've found with this level of male clientele, the more structure I can give them, the better success they will have.
Right.
Because they're used to having people do things for them in various areas of their life. So if this is one area that they don't know a whole lot about, that they don't have to think about, the better it will help them. So
Great.
that's my spiel.
Awesome.
That was fun.